Buckle up, listeners. Today, we're diving deep into the Jamaican financial crisis of the 1990s. We're talking loans, mortgages, property seizures, high-stakes stuff. But this isn't some Wall Street thriller. This is the real deal. This is the story of Debtor 10. So who is Debtor 10?
He was a family man, ran a successful fabric business. He and his wife, they owned their family home, had a mortgage with National Commercial Bank, pretty typical. But this is where things get interesting.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What happened?
Like a lot of entrepreneurs back then, Debtor 10, he saw opportunities to grow his business.
And the banks, they were practically throwing money at people, right?
Yeah.
All those promises of easy credit, quick returns.
Exactly. High-interest loans were everywhere. Financial institutions were handing them out like candy.
So did Debtor 10 get greedy? Is that what happened?
Not exactly. It all started back in July of 1992 when he took out a loan with Eagle Merchant Bank of Jamaica Limited. He used it to buy stock for his business. And get this, he actually managed it well. He was making his payments, his business was growing, he seemed to have a good handle on things.
So far, so good, right? He's being responsible, using the loan to invest in his business. This doesn't sound like a financial thriller yet.
Right. But here's where we see those risky lending practices start to creep in. We're talking sky-high interest rates, the kind that can make your head spin, even if you're doing everything right.
I see where this is going. Even if Debtor 10 was initially doing okay, those high interest rates could quickly become a problem, right? Especially with the Jamaican economy being so unpredictable in the 90s.
Exactly. And it wasn't just one bank doing this, oh no. It was practically the whole financial system. Multiple banks offering these crazy interest rates, often without really checking if borrowers could actually pay back the loans. It was a disaster waiting to happen.
Oh man, a ticking time bomb. So what happened next? Did Debtor 10 just keep borrowing?
He did. In April 1993, he went back to Eagle Merchant Bank of Jamaica Limited, took out a second loan, again, secured against his home.
A second loan? Was he in over his head at this point?
It's hard to say for sure. He used some of that second loan to pay off the first one, which on paper sounds like a good idea. The rest he put back into his business. But those high interest rates were still looming.
Right, so even if he was consolidating, those high interest rates from the first loan, they were still there in the background, eating away at whatever progress he was making.
Exactly. It's like running up a down escalator. You might be moving, but you're not really getting anywhere. And then, in September 1993, he does it again. He takes out a third loan.
A third one? This guy must have had nerves of steel.
This time, it was from Eagle Commercial Bank of Jamaica Limited. And guess what? He secured it against his home yet again.
Oh boy, 3 loans on one property. This is giving me anxiety just thinking about it.
And here's the kicker. This third loan came with a 55% interest rate per year.
55% per year? Are you kidding? Calculated monthly, that's just insane.
It's mind-boggling. It's no wonder so many people got caught in this debt trap. They'd take out a new loan to cover an old one, but the interest just kept piling up. It was a vicious cycle.
So Debtor 10's caught in this web of loans, the interest is piling up. What did he do?
Well, he tried to get ahead of it. In October 1994, he went to Island Merchant Bank Limited to consolidate those Eagle Merchant Bank loans, hoping for, maybe some better terms.
So he's basically shifting his debt from one bank to another, right? Trying to find a way out. Did it work?
It's not entirely clear. See, this is where things get even more complicated. Debtor 10, he says he used some of this new loan to pay down those Eagle Merchant Bank loans, some went to his business, and the rest, he was told to use it for business cash flow.
Hold on. Who told him that?
His lender, apparently. And he insists he kept up with all the loans that weren't, already in default.
So he's saying he was doing what he was told, trying to stay afloat.
That's his story. But we don't really know how much of that Island Merchant Bank loan actually went towards those Eagle Merchant Bank loans, or if switching things up actually helped him at all. It's murky.
Right, because even if he's consolidating, the problem is those high interest rates, they don't just disappear.
Exactly. They're like this dark cloud following him around, right? We know that from October 1994 to December 1995, he got even more money from Island Merchant Bank Limited.
How much are we talking here?
According to his statement, about $450,000 total. It came in several installments.
Okay, that's a significant chunk of change. What was all that for?
That's the thing. He claims he didn't even know where some of that money went. He suggests the bank was using it to pay off those old loans without telling him.
Wow. So not only are the interest rates insane, but they're also allegedly moving his money around without his knowledge. That's messed up.
Yeah, and it gets worse. In February 1995, a new mortgage, it pops up on his home.
You're kidding. Another one.
Yeah, another mortgage. He remembers signing it, but get this, he says he and his wife, they were told to sign blank documents.
Wait, blank documents? Seriously?
That's what he claims. He says their financial advisor, who also worked for the bank Red Flag, right there, told them everything was cool.
Hold on. Their financial advisor was a bank employee? That's like getting relationship advice from your ex.
Right. Talk about a conflict of interest. No wonder Debtor 10 felt like he was being misled. And remember, this is all happening against the backdrop of this massive financial crisis, so the banks are under a lot of scrutiny.
Yeah. You'd think they'd be extra careful to avoid any appearance of impropriety. So they're telling him to sign blank documents assuring him it's fine. What did he do?
What could he do? They made him think it was normal. It just shows how much power the banks had back then. They could say jump, and people would ask how high.
It's heartbreaking. Did he ever find out how much this new mortgage was actually for?
He says he only found out much later, and it was way more than what he'd agreed to.
Are you serious? That's outrageous. Did he confront them?
Absolutely. He went straight to the bank, demanded to know what was going on.
You'd think the bank would at least hear him out. What did they say?
They basically told him tough luck. They said he signed the agreement, so it was his problem now.
It's always the little guy who gets the short end of the stick. Did he just give up?
Oh, no. Remember, this is Debtor 10 we're talking about. He's a fighter. He built his business from the ground up. He doesn't back down easily.
So what did he do? How do you fight a bank?
Well, in November of 1995, both Island Merchant Bank Limited and what seems to be a connected outfit, Island Victoria Merchant Bank Limited, they came knocking, demanding full payment on his loans.
And I'm guessing he didn't have that kind of cash just lying around.
Not exactly. Remember those high interest rates, that disputed mortgage, and the fact that the Jamaican economy was basically in free fall?
Yeah, not exactly a recipe for financial stability.
So he tried to reason with them, asked for a breakdown of what he owed, wanted to see the numbers, transparency 101.
Seems reasonable.
Right. But they ignored him. He's stuck. So he decides, okay, I'm taking this up the ladder.
He complained to their manager or something.
Well, in March of 1996, he went to the manager of Jamaica National Building Society.
Why the Building Society? What do they have to do with this?
It sounds like they were somehow involved with Island Merchant Bank Limited. Maybe he thought they'd be more neutral,
So did the Building Society help him?
Not really. There were some letters, some acknowledgments of his concerns, but no real action. He never got that clear accounting of his debt that he'd asked for.
Typical. They listen and nod, and then nothing.
Exactly. It's like they're trying to placate him without actually solving the problem. But Debtor 10, he's not going away that easily. He's not giving up.
So what did he do next?
He called in the big guns. He got himself a lawyer.
Ah, the legal route. It's the classic David and Goliath story, isn't it? The little guy taking on the giant corporation.
Exactly. And on his lawyer's advice, in July 1998, Debtor 10 stopped making payments on his loan.
Whoa, hold on. That's a bold move. He just stopped paying.
He was desperate. He felt like he had no other choice. He had to get their attention somehow.
I bet the bank wasn't too happy about that.
They were furious. They slapped him with legal proceedings, threatened to take his house.
Wow, they were playing hardball. They really wanted to make an example out of him, didn't they?
It sure seems like it. They were trying to scare him into backing down.
But Debtor 10, he wasn't backing down. What happened next?
He countersued. He said, oh yeah, you want to play? Game on. He came back with a whole list of accusations against the bank. He wasn't messing around.
Good for him. Someone had to stand up to them.
Yeah.
This whole thing is just mind-blowing.
Right, and just when you think the story can't get any wilder, in July 1998, Debtor 10 found out that his loans, they'd been sold.
Sold? To who?
To a completely different bank, Citizens Bank Limited.
Citizens Bank. What's their deal? Why were they involved?
Okay, so Citizens Bank, they were like the cleanup crew. See, after a bunch of financial institutions went bust, including, you guessed it, Island Merchant Bank, they brought in Citizens Bank to try and fix the mess.
So they're like the financial Grim Reaper, coming in to clean up after the party's over.
Exactly. And they were brought in by this big organization, FINSAC. They're the ones who called the shots, trying to prevent a total economic meltdown in Jamaica.
So they swooped in and saved the day.
Well, they tried. But can you imagine what it was like for borrowers like Debtor 10? It was already a chaotic time, and then suddenly their loans are being shuffled around. They're dealing with new banks, new rules. It was a mess.
Talk about adding insult to injury. What did Debtor 10 do about this new development?
Well, he did what any resourceful person would do. He contacted FINSAC directly.
He went straight to the top.
He was at his wit's end. He wanted answers. He felt like he'd been lied to, misled, taken advantage of, and now his loans had been pawned off to another bank.
So what did FinSAC do? Did they finally help him? So last we heard, Debtor 10 was knocking on FinSAC's door, looking for some answers, some help, something. Did they give it to him?
Well, you'd think, right? I mean, FinSAC, they were supposed to be the good guys stepping in to fix this whole financial mess. But it doesn't seem like it.
They gave him the runaround, too.
It sounds like it. Debtor 10, he kept contacting them, explaining his situation, those inconsistencies with his loans, and he wanted a full investigation. He even sent a formal complaint, laid it all out for them.
Mm-hmm. What did FinSAC do?
Nothing. Well, as far as we can tell anyway. He says they never admitted any wrongdoing by the banks, never gave him a clear accounting of what he actually owed. It's like his case, it just disappeared.
Wow. So even with FinSAC stepping in, trying to fix things, a lot of people still got left behind. It makes you wonder how many other Debtor 10s are out there, people who got caught in the system and never found their way out.
It's definitely something to think about. And, Debtor 10's story is just one perspective. Remember those extra documents he gave to FinSAC?
Yeah, the letters, the bank statements, that kind of thing.
Right, those. Well, some of them, they tell a slightly different story, especially when it comes to Island Merchant Bank Limited.
Really? How so?
Okay, so there's this letter, right? From Eagle Commercial Bank to Debtor 10, dated October 14th, 1994. It confirms that he owed them, Eagle Commercial Bank Limited, $280,000. And remember how Debtor 10 said he'd used part of that Island Merchant Bank loan to pay off those Eagle Commercial Bank loans?
Yeah, as part of the whole consolidation thing. So this letter from Eagle, it seems to back him up on that.
Exactly. But get this, there's another letter, this one dated November 20th, 1995, from Island Merchant Bank to Debtor 10. They're demanding full payment on his loan, which, according to them, was a lot of money.
But Debtor 10, he claimed he never knew the real amount, right? He said the bank was being shady, not giving him the full picture.
Exactly. And that's where things get murky, because this letter from Island Merchant Bank, it suggests that they did actually tell him the total amount. So who do you believe?
It's his word against theirs. A real he said, she said situation.
Right. And without seeing all the bank's records, all their internal communication, it's almost impossible to know for sure what really happened. It's like trying to solve a mystery with only half the clues.
So frustrating. What about those other documents? Do they tell us anything helpful?
Well, there's another one, a letter from Island Merchant Bank, this time to the manager of Jamaica National Building Society. It's dated March 11th, 1996. So right after Debtor 10 filed that complaint.
Right. He was hoping they could help sort things out. What did the letter say?
Island Merchant Bank, they're basically saying Debtor 10 is wrong. They claim they did give him a full breakdown of his loans, all the documentation he needed.
Well, that's the exact opposite of what Debtor 10 said.
Yep. And this is the problem FinSAC kept running into. Everyone had a different story, information was missing, and the whole system was so secretive, so hard to penetrate.
It's easy to get lost in the numbers, the big picture. But Debtor 10's story reminds us that there were real people at the heart of this crisis. People who lost their homes, their businesses, their livelihoods.
And his story, it really underscores the need for transparency, for accountability, especially when you're dealing with institutions that have so much power.
Absolutely. We might never know the whole truth about what happened to Debtor 10, but his story, it's a powerful reminder that we need to do better. We need a system that protects everyone, not just the privileged few. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.